One. Welcome to Operator Syndrome. We're going in some new directions, and I've talked about that a little bit. We're going to be doing some interviews. Patrick's got a couple of Army guys he's going to interview that worked with him in the Rangers and 82nd Airborne. I'm going to stay on the maritime side of the house and talk to a Force Recon Marine today. So we're sort of experimenting and going in new directions. Part of it is driven by the fact that we want to get our information right. I've worked with Force Recon Marines, but I don't know the whole pipeline. I don't know the whole system. I don't even know the whole command structure, things like that. And a lot has changed. Like, I'm a dinosaur. I was in the Gulf War back in the year of our Lord, 1990. And so there's so much has changed that it's really it can be, I don't know, it can be challenging to just get things straight. Another thing I'll say before I introduce David, our guest today, is that I was watching a podcast with it was Sean Ryan's podcast, Vigilance Elite, and he had a Marine Force Recon guy on there named Alan Cooper, and he went on to go into Special Forces later, which is a whole nother story, and he ended up working for the CIA doing that kind of stuff even later. But he was of my generation, and lo and behold, I heard he was in Ras Al Khafji. That was the northern part of Saudi Arabia in the Gulf War, when they got surrounded by a bunch of Iraqis. We were only about 18 clicks south of there doing operations of our own up the coast. And we were briefed on, get ready to go aid these guys if they get in a tight spot. Well, they didn't. Good recon Marines, they weren't seen or detected, and they slithered out of there, and it was fine. But it was kind of hairy. It was really hairy for those guys for about 48 hours. And I was thinking, wow, small world. And we had even been briefed on there. I think they were a fire team. I think there were 6 of them up there stuck somewhere in Khafji. But all that to say, we want to get into some Marine Force Recon talk and hear David's story and his side of the fence. And I have a lot of questions just because I've worked with a lot of, when I say worked with, I've trained with a lot of Force Recon Marines at some special schools, the Army Special Forces Sniper School called SODIC, the Army Special Forces Assault School called SAFARTEC, and then other schools. I mean, when I was trained as a spy master, I was an air rep. So in the Navy, I took care of parachutes. I was a parachute rigger. I was a jump master. So I had to do all the stuff that dealt with gear going up or going down or rappelling. And so I went to my first school when I was fresh out of buds, just right back from airborne school, Fort Benning. My chief took me to spy rig school up at Camp Pendleton, and it was first Force Recon out there, and a gunnery sergeant I was so impressed by how squared away this guy was. He knew the nomenclature. He knew the tolerances on everything. He was one of the best instructors I've ever had. And that was kind of a fun thing. A spy rig's where you clip into this rope and a helo like lifts you out. And it went back to Vietnam when guys were trying to get out of triple canopy jungle and all that. But anyway, I've had good experiences with Force Recon. And so the purpose here is just to hear David's story. David McDowell is our guest, and he was Force Reconnaissance Marine. And so welcome, and thank you for agreeing to this. It's not a huge paycheck, but we're hoping to tell some stories to some veteran buddies.
Well, aloha. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, aloha, by the way. David's in Hawaii. I'm in Kentucky, thanks to the somewhat reliable technologies of Zoom. We were able to do this kind of stuff, and hey, it's fun. Well, I'd first like to just talk about you and your story, maybe 5-10 minutes, just or more if you want. Just like, where'd you go to boot camp?
Yeah, sure.
What was your pipeline, and where did you serve?
So I didn't intend to try out for recon when I joined the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marine Corps pretty late. I was 26 years old, working prior to that, I was just working security guard jobs, anywhere, really felt like my life wasn't going anywhere. The war was going on, and I felt like I needed to contribute to something. So I decided to enlist in the military. It wasn't the Marine Corps. I tried the Army, and it seemed like they were wasting my time. So the funny story is, when I left the Army recruiting office, there was a Marine recruiter in his Deltas. And if you're not familiar with what the Delta uniform looks like, it's your white hat with your khaki uniform and your blue pants with the red stripe going down. Really, really a sexy uniform. He was outside on the phone, and he saw me that I walked out of the recruiter's office on the Army side, and he asked, "Hey, man, you trying to run the military?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was like, "What, are you trying to join the Army?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I'm talking to everybody right now. I'm not really sure what I want to do." It was like, "Oh, well, why don't you come and see what we have to offer, and maybe join the best, if you what do you want to do?" And that's like, I just, want to go down range, I guess,
That's
the war going on, and just want to get some, I guess. Is, well, you came to the right place,
oh man.
and
Just an
that was it.
aside, a funny aside, two things. First of all, the Marine dress blues, Deltas are the sexiest dress uniform on the planet. There are no second best. They're the best. I mean, they just look cool. And it's funny thing is I when when I wanted to go in the military, I was kind of in a similar limbo. I just wanted to do something, get on with my life. I went to the Marines first. And there's good recruiters and there's bad recruiters, but the guy I went into, it was this book I had when I was a teenager called Uniforms of the Elite Forces. And because you see on this page, there's a Force Recon Marine here. He looked the coolest. I was like, I want to do that. Because the picture, look, this is an eons old book. I mean, hilarious. But I was like, I want to be one of those guys. And somebody else who was a Marine said, "Oh, those Force Recon Marines are badass. That's their elite." So I went to the Marine Corps and the recruiter, and I said, "Hey, man, I'd like to be a Force Recon guy." And he goes, "Oh, you'll never make that. That's crazy. You got to be crazy to do that." And I was like, "Oh," kind of talked me out of it. I ended up at a Navy recruiter. So kind of funny story how there's good recruiters and bad recruiters.
There is, I guess, So I ended up in the Marine recruiter's office, and
Yeah.
we talked about it. Didn't know anything about recon, had no idea. And so he was like, he kind of filled me out, and 0311, or the infantry MOS in the Marine Corps is, 0300. But
Right.
we basically said, "Yeah, man, we can get you in." I said, "Yeah, I just want to hurry up and get out of here." So
Ah,
2 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm out to boot camp in San Diego.
San
So
Diego.
I signed the 0300 contract, which is your infantry.
Hmm.
Went to boot camp in San Diego, MCRD, Marine Corps Recruit Depot.
You're right. I know it well.
Yeah, 3 months over there. Uh, Graduated. Went to School of Infantry West in Camp Pendleton. After
Hmm.
that, for your infantry training, that's
Yeah.
about 2 months of your. So you start off for the first 2 weeks or whatever. You do your basic infantry, patrolling,
Right.
uh, sit in the defense. It's just your basic stuff.
Yeah.
And what happens was, if you want to, you have like other infantry MOSs, like your mortarmen, your 0341s. You have an assaultmen, 0351s. Machine gunners is your 31s.
Hmm.
Um, so what I did, I wasn't really sure, but I just was content being 0311, which is your regular rifleman. But we had an instructor there, a sergeant, and I forgot his name, but he was a really good guy. He's like, "Why would you be a nasty 0311? But you can come over and try out to be a 51." So an 0351, basically they're kind of like assaulters. I mean, they learn demolition, but they also learn rockets. So when I was in, they had a system, a platform called a small,
Hmm.
which I forget what that acronym stands for, but it's a short fired rocket.
Hmm.
Um, and they do a lot of anti-tank stuff. But
Yeah.
you have to be pretty smart in math. I mean, because you're calculating, fuses and time
Yeah.
fuses and things like that. So you have to know some kind of math, and I suck in math, man.
Uh,
I really do. And if we ever get a chance to talk about dive school, the Marine
yeah.
Corps, I'll get into that. But he worked with me because he knew I struggled in math, so he worked with me, and finally got it through and passed the test, because you have to pass the test, a series of written tests to get that MOS. So he helped me out, ended up becoming 0351. Right after that, our battalion, or the battalion that I got assigned to, came in. We had our graduation ceremony at SOI, and then they came over and picked us up, and I got assigned to 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It was like a culture shock, I guess. It was like boot camp all over again. So
Yeah, really, just being in the infantry, just being in the regular infantry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where was that, in Pendleton?
That was in Camp Pendleton, yes.
Yeah.
So what,
Okay.
what happened was our home base. Well, actually, Camp Pendleton is so big, so it's broken up into zones.
Right.
So that area called area 51 area, which is Hornell.
Yeah.
I got that right. I got there. Yeah, so it's Camp Hornell, 1st Marines, and 1-4 is attached to 1st Marines. So you got, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, and 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, and you got 1-4. But at the time, all the battalions were back, so they didn't have enough room to house us. So they split the battalion up. Some guys were over at the air wing side, over at main side, next to the air wingers.
Right.
And yeah, guys split up somewhere else. So what they kept us in squad base in 51 area in Camp Hornell for about a couple months. So we lived in squad base. We didn't have our own barracks rooms. It was like boot camp all over again. You got a fire watch and all that. And it finally had barracks opened up where the rest of the time was at. So they moved us out of the squad base and they stuck us in with the rest of the battalion. So we're the only infantry battalion there. And we're, right next to the airfield. There's nothing but air wingers. There's no infantry people there. We were all in there, and they thought we were crazy. Just because you got a whole, bunch of new guys coming in, and you're not, chilling and everything. These guys are making you run all over the place and whatnot. There's a lot of yelling and screaming. So they're boots. So the Marine Corps has a term, that we use, boots. You're brand new. You're just a boot drop.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys were they just came back from a MEU. So a MEU is a Marine Expeditionary Unit's like a deployment. It is a deployment, but you're on a ship. So just came back from that, and a lot of those Marines were combat Marines. They deployed to Najaf in 2004. A lot of them seen heavy combat, got decorations for valor.
Yeah.
A lot of hard asses, and
yeah, for sure.
And it was, I want to say it was intimidating, but it was, I was pretty humbled.
Yeah.
Around there. But
just about 2005-ish.
Yeah, so that campaign was in 2004 when when 1-4 actually went into Najaf. And if you look for Discovery Channel, whatever, it's on there. But it was pretty significant campaign. It's like Fallujah. I was up there with Fallujah.
Right. Some serious fighting.
Yeah, those guys were pretty badass.
No doubt.
Yeah, being under those guys was pretty good. I really enjoyed it, but my first year or two was pretty rough. Being a new guy,
I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure, as reporting the SEAL team, you go to Buds, and then I think at your time it wasn't SQT, it was SDT. So you report straight to your team, but you're just a new guy.
Yeah, SDT was even after me. We went just right to the SEAL team, and you started your training. The training cadre started the advanced training at your team. It wasn't as standardized. So but we had a lot more clout, coming in. We got our fair share of hell as new guys, but that wasn't until really we got to a team. So that's a different culture for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure it was a culture shock for you,
Yeah. So how did you get to Force Recon? And I have a lot of questions about Force versus like Division Recon, but what led you that path?
So that happened when I re-enlisted. So I did my 4 years in the infantry.
Okay.
When I re-enlisted, I had a friend that actually went to Recon before I did. And I had no idea that he planned to do that. I mean, he was, I mean, he was a stud, to tell you the truth. And he was a really smart guy. He fit all that profile, you know, for a reconnaissance marine or special operations, you know, to get into SOF.
Right.
So he really fit that. But I had no idea that he was intending to recon. And he honestly told me, he said that he wanted to do it to see if he can do it.
Yeah. Wow.
Thinking really ahead, like, oh, this is what I want to do and I make a career out of it. He just wanted to do it to see if he can do it. And he did. And he did really well.
Wow.
Really well. So he came back from basic reconnaissance course, which is the course that you attend if you want to become a recon marine. And he's like, hey man, he's like, you should try it, man. I said, I think you should. I said, you really give it some thought. And I was like, well,
yeah,
maybe. I don't know. I was like, I really need to. 'Cause at the time, I wasn't really in shape. There's a lot of running and swimming involved in that program. So I was like, well, yeah, I'll think about it. But I really did. And get to the point where why I decided to become a recon marine is when I was about to get out. So I had like about a year or so, give or take, until I actually completed my contract. And what they do with Marines on that time is like you're not with your unit anymore. So the Marine Corps has a thing called a Fleet Assistance Program, FAP. So they FAP Marines out to, I guess, another unit or somewhere else. So where I was is they call it Camp Services. And Camp Services basically has like your wood shop, they have your facilities, they have Marines cutting grass. Basically, they try to give them something to do before they get out.
Right.
It's not really a great place to go. I mean, I guess these guys are just so anxious to get out. They're just disgruntled, belligerent, you know. They just want their DD-214 or just want to go on terminal leave. You know? They put me with this retired master sergeant. He was in charge of the barracks. So he was a building manager. Yeah. And he was a GS9, he was a federal employee. He was a GS9, and that guy could not let go of his rank. You know, he's a retired master sergeant, I understand that, but he was one of those guys where he left the Marine Corps, but he didn't, and he just walked around like he was like fucking master sergeant. So I had to deal with him every morning. And so anything that he didn't want to do, just basically like the grunt work, you know, he'll maybe go off and inspect every room. We had like about, we had about 10 barracks there. I forget, man. There was a lot of rooms that I had to inspect. So you're talking about like a whole day's worth of just walking around and just inspecting each room, doing this and doing that. And I'm like, you know what? I need to get out of this place, and maybe it's not a bad idea to re-enlist because I don't know what I'm going to do if I get out. You know, I have no idea. So I gave it a shot. Talked to my friend, and he's like, you know, yeah, I want to get in shape, man, and try out to go BRC.
Did you start running and PT and
running? Went to the pool. Yeah, so we went to the pool, swam. Yeah. Basically, anything that they did at BRC, he helped me out with. To have that knowledge beforehand.
Huge.
So he gave me those tools. So, and it worked. It helped out, man. So, and I did. So I talked to the career planner there, and I explained to him that, I said, I think I do want to re-enlist, and I want to try out for basic reconnaissance school. Yeah. And so he helped me out with that. So there's a screening test. It's kind of like the SEAL screening test. You have a 500-yard swim. Yeah. But it's in camis. So you wear cami top and bottom. It's a 500-yard swim. I forget what the time was. It was like 27 minutes. I forget. So you do camis on. Yeah, camis on. You do that, and then first you jump off the high platform. Yeah. So you do a abandoned ship style platform where you cross your arms, and then you tread water for 30 or 45 minutes, and they make you take your blouse off and do a drown proofing where you just not your blouse but your trousers. Right. Your basic waterproofing where you tie the trouser legs behind your back and you flap the trousers up and down in the water and try to get some air in. So you have like a UDT vest almost. Right. You do that, and then you do your swim, and then there's an underwater crossover, 25 meter. So basically, 25-meter width of the pool. You swim on the water, and then after that, you do a rifle or a brick retrieval. So basically, you dive down to the deep end, you grab a brick or a rifle, a rubber rifle, and you hold it over your head like that, and then you just do a scissors kick till they tell you to drop or whatever they tell you to do. You do that, and then you do a Marine Corps PFT, which is your pull-ups, your crunches, and then your 3-mile run.
Right.
And when you do that, you want to max out. So the max pull-ups is to get 100 points is 20 pull-ups. You want to do 20 or more. I mean, you don't want to just do the minimum. You want to do your max pull-ups. You want to do your max crunches, and you want to make that 3-mile run in like 18 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Smoking
So
it.
Yeah. So basically, they just want to see if you're pulling out. So, I mean, if you can do the minimum, but you're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to select you. Right. Until you go home. So,
so you passed it.
Yeah. So that's the BRC screening test.
And then you went to, is it called Basic Recon course? Did you say?
Yeah, it's called Basic Reconnaissance course.
Right.
It's in Camp Pendleton.
Yeah.
Now, yeah. So the entire course is Camp Pendleton. Back then it was, I think it was in Coronado. The actual schoolhouse was in Coronado, but most of their training is in Camp Pendleton. So they figured, well, just move it to Camp Pendleton.
Sure.
And then a portion of it is in Coronado, the amphibious base.
Yeah, it's just as a quick aside, I mean, there were a lot back in my day. We had a lot of Force Recon guys in and out of Coronado. They were doing over the horizon stuff, landing on beaches, and the same stuff we were doing really. Before we go on with David's story, listen, I just wanted to let our listeners know, because we have a lot of listeners. We're gathering. We've got thousands of listeners now, amazingly. And a lot of them don't know, they're not military. They just are interested in our stories. And so for those out there listening, Force Reconnaissance back in my day. Now, we're going to hopefully get into some of the changes in the evolution into what's called MARSOC and drawing out of Det 1. And these are terms we'll talk about. But back in my day, there was Division Recon and Force Recon. Force Recon were the most elite in the Marine Corps at that time, late 80s, early 90s. And their job description was Force Reconnaissance companies continue to operate and focus primarily on direct action, hitting targets, intelligence gathering, and maritime raid ops in the visit board, search and seizure arena. And I just wanted to say that could be the job description for a Navy SEAL. I mean, that's exactly the same stuff we were doing, and we were doing very similar kind of stuff. So without going off too far on that, so how long was the training, and what were your big challenges? I mean, the whole thing's challenging, but what did you struggle with maybe the most, or was there one thing that you dreaded?
Oh,
everything.
Yeah, so the training itself is it's 13 weeks long.
13 weeks.
And it's broken down in 3 phases. But you have your first phase is basically this is a kick in the nuts.
Yeah.
When I was going, the second phase was the amphib, and then third phase was your patrolling.
Yeah.
I don't know if they switched it around. I think maybe they did, but it's 13 weeks long. The hardest part, I don't know, man. Everything was hard. I think it would be the amphib base, just the swimming.
Yeah.
The swimming. So you can be a good swimmer in the pool, but once you slap fins on, bro, and go in the ocean, as a SEAL, it's a whole different. There's no slides to hold on if you something happens, man.
Yeah.
So you're out there. So yeah, I think it was there was an evolution where we were in Coronado, and we had to swim we had to fin out 500 yards to a buoy, and then another 500 yards to another buoy, and then swim 500 yards back inshore, and then run another 500 yards and circle around. It's just basically a circle. So you're running on the beach, you put your fin back on, and then you swim back out in the ocean for it. And you do that 5 times, and you got to do that within an hour. Yeah,
that's challenging.
Yeah, that's it seems like, well, an hour, yeah, but try doing it. I mean, against the current
Yeah.
and all that. So I had a very hard time with that, and
Mm-hmm.
I was 32 when I went into BRC.
Wow, that's
I was-
getting, yeah.
yeah, and I don't know what the standards for SEAL team. I'm for buds. I'm pretty sure I think it's 28. Is when
Yeah,
you get up there. Yeah,
it's below 30. We had a guy, well, not in my class, but there was a guy who came through there and he got a waiver somehow and he was over 30, but it was not like, I mean, man, I did it at 19 and it damn near killed me.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, it's just, yeah, same kind of stuff. Running and swimming on at beach, it just wears you out. And running in the sand, yeah, like you were saying, that's a good point. People out there thinking, "Whoa, I like to swim in a pool." You get out of the open ocean and currents start hitting you, and it's just not. It's not pleasant.
No,
And
it's
running
not.
running on the beach is a whole nother level. It's not like running around in your little catch me feel me pants and sneakers on a track. It's like you're sinking down. It really gasses the hell out of you. But yeah,
Running in boots, and prior to that, we had to hike in like 2 miles. So before that swim, we hiked in for 2 miles.
yeah, there you go.
That like weighed like close to 90 pounds, I guess.
Yeah,
It was heavy. So, but yeah, I mean that I struggle with that. And the thing with finning is you got to really fin
yeah,
because if you're slacking off, you're not going to go anywhere. So if your calves are not hurting, you're not doing it right.
of course.
You got to like really fin, and your calves are going to freaking burn.
Yeah,
So
everything's gonna hurt.
everything's gonna hurt. So we did that twice. So we did that slick without a pack on, and then we did it again with a pack.
Boy.
There's a way to swim with the pack, so we did that, and then there was another evolution I remember where we did a boat race, and we were carrying the CRCs, which are combat rubber raiding craft.
Right.
I know you guys and Buds have that little IBSs that you guys
IBS.
carry,
Yeah.
quite just as bad, but we were carrying this damn freaking Zodiac,
Oh
and
yeah.
we had to run to the shore, and then we had to paddle. So we're not using the motor, so we were just paddling.
Yeah.
You have to paddle from one buoy to the next and get on shore again, and then pick up the Zodiac and run. And it's just a lap, and you do that 5 times. And in the middle of that, while you're in the bay, you have to broach the boat. Well, basically, you flip the boat over. So we call it broaching.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
yeah, so it's like you tie a rope
Right.
on the side of the Zodiac, and you have somebody leaning, and you
Uh,
flip the boat over. Yeah, it's really not easy to do, and you have to flip it back again.
yep.
So
Oh, I know it well.
yeah, so that takes time. So it's an evolution. It's a race.
Yeah, we called it dumping boat, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a real pain. Yeah. So
Did you ever go through the heavy surf out off on the ocean side of Coronado?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. That can
Yeah.
be that can hand it to you depending on what the surf's doing.
Oh yeah. So they got some big surf over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you've been there, but people don't realize it. There's huge waves there. But
I've seen the Grim Reaper swimming around with goggles and fins on out in that water.
yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So I think that's probably the most challenging I did, and we had an evolution. It was called the longest night. So it was pretty rough. That was pretty rough. And then towards the end, so the ending of BRC, it's a rite of passage. It's during the patrol phase. They used to call it the 12 tiers. So basically, the instructors will gas you with the CS gas.
Yeah.
They'll just they have this thing where they just gas you and everything, But it was like a 3 mile. I forget how long that hike was, but you're basically hiking up this mountain, and they just gas you, and you're carrying like your pack. You got like one of those dummies, CPR dummies, whatever. You're carrying that, so you're by that time you've been up for like a week already, just doing one evolution to the next, doing in the field during operations, and then that would be the last evolution you would do is that. So that was a kick in the nuts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that worked. So once you make it to that, you're basically a recon marine. I mean, they basically secure you from training once
Gotcha.
you get over that fire break.
And
And
when you say you're at that point you're a recon marine, are you talking division recon or your force already?
no, so that's your 0321 division recon marine. Force
Right,
recon has a selection process.
right. So at that point you haven't been scuba qualled or
No,
jump
absolutely not.
you haven't been at jump school.
No,
Okay,
no.
gotcha.
So BRC is just the basic schoolhouse for recon marines.
Hmm.
Once you make it to that, you become 0321. You get your certificate of training, graduate, go to your battalion, whatever battalion you go to. So the pipeline after that is jump school. You go to Fort Benning, Georgia,
Yep.
do your for 3 weeks static line jumps. You do your 5 jumps.
Hmm.
Get your we call it lead sled. I don't know what
Lead
they call
sled. Lead sled. That's what we called it.
Yeah, so you get your silver wings, and then get back to your parent unit, and it's 5 more jumps. I don't know
Yeah.
how it was back in your day, but it's 5 more jumps,
Yeah.
different platforms, night jumps, combat jumps.
Yep.
But it's 5 more, and you get your gold wings, which is your Navy, Marine Corps parachutist.
Parachutist wings. Yeah. That's the first
So
thing we all wanted. We wanted a
yeah,
better looking set of wings. Gold. Gold,
everybody,
baby. Yeah.
everybody was everybody wants those gold wings. Yeah. Then you go to SEER, which is your survival evasion resistant escape training.
Was that
I
Warner
went
Springs?
There's Warner Springs. I went to Warner Springs. There's one
Yeah.
in Maine. Yeah, so I went to Warner Springs, California,
Yep.
and went there for about a month or so,
Yeah. That's
and
a
then
for our listeners who may not know, SEER is a school that special operators go to and mostly pilots, fighter pilots. It's called Survive, Escape, Resist, and Evade. And they're training you in techniques on how to do those things. But if you're taken prisoner of war, if you're captured, resistance methods for interrogation, field survival techniques, ways to just play the game. If you end up being in the unfortunate situation of being a prisoner of war. So, yeah, I went to that same one. Here's an interesting question. Back in my day, they waterboarded us. Did they
yeah,
waterboard you? Yeah.
yeah. So they watered when I was there. They did,
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently, so they waterboard in Warner Springs, but in Maine, I hear that they put a sack over your head and they blow cigar smoke in your face. I don't know, well, but that's just what I've been told. Somebody, it
Yeah.
was a retired SEAL. He told
Yeah.
me that he went to Maine for the winter SEER, and we just started blowing smoke in his face. Had a sack over his head, but anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
SEER was that was another nut kicker, man.
Yeah.
That
Was.
was. I don't think I'd ever want to do that again.
Yeah.
But
No, me neither.
it was you build a lot of character. Let me put that way. So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
A
there are
lot of
some guys trying.
yeah, a lot of mental game there in that
A lot
one.
of mental games. Lots of mental games. Yeah. So you go to SEER training. There's a lot of other schools you go to. You go to a tracker's course. Some guys go to snipers. Um, some guys go to static line jump master school.
Okay.
But I mean, as a new guy, you won't be doing that. But
Right.
these are all the opportunities that you can go to. Schools that you can go to.
Did you say
Those
scuba?
So you can go to scuba school,
Yeah.
but usually it's the force reconnaissance guys that will go to those schools. But yeah, as a division recon marine, you could go to scuba, you could go to Halo. Um, list goes on. I mean, the opportunities are there, but normally, a force reconnaissance marine will attend your dive training and your Halo,
Yeah.
among other things. So
So how do you go? What's the process to go from division over to force? Is there
there
another
was
selection?
there is a selection. It's kind of like they make you go on a hike. It's like they don't tell you anything, so you go on this hike, and
Hmm.
you don't know when you're going to stop. You're going to go on these different evolutions, and you don't know what the time is. They don't give you a timeline.
Right.
So basically, you're just in your own head,
Yeah.
and you're trying to complete this evolution as best you can. They won't tell you if you're doing a good job or doing a bad job. They just say, okay, well, on to the next evolution. So
Yeah.
basically, what they do is they want to assess your not only your physical capabilities but your mental.
Exactly.
You want to assess your character,
Right.
what kind of person you are. You go through a series of interviews. Um, you speak with your sergeant major, first sergeant major. So you go into like these interviews, and then officers talk to their counterparts, I guess, like their commander.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you go through these interviews and they ask you these questions, and
Yeah.
they just kind of like pick you out from there, just how you think
Yeah.
and whatnot, to see if you're a fit for the community. Because Force Reconnaissance is a smaller community,
Sure.
so
Yeah. Yeah. We're moving up the ladder for our listeners. If you can't tell, Force is like kind of the gold standard. Well, it is. And then, I'm looking at the time. We've got a few minutes left, and we've already burned, getting up on an hour. Or no, we have a little bit more than that. I'm sorry. Yeah. But I'm trying to keep track of our time. We may have to turn this into 2 episodes if David is willing.
absolutely.
To and because I've got a ton more questions. So you make it through the selection, and they say, okay, now you got a shot at Force. Is there a whole nother? I'm assuming there's probably another training module before you get assigned a Force unit, Force Recon unit.
Yeah, they send you to so you go to like yeah, assaulter. So they send you to these schools to be
Yeah,
an assaulter, breaches course,
yeah,
um, just like close quarter battle type schools,
yeah. CQ.
um, CQB.
Are they
Um,
mostly Marine schools? Because I met when I went to Safartech, which is an assaulter course out at Fort Bragg. It's a special forces assaulter course. There were,
really good school. Yeah,
yeah, there were at least 3. I know for sure because we rubbed shoulders with these guys, and we spent countless hours, you do standing around talking, getting to know each other, and they were all Force Recon, impressive guys, and we kind of bonded because there were 2 of us who were SEALs there at the course, and these 3 Force Recon Marines. I think there were only 3. I'm pretty sure. I still have a photo of that class, and then the rest were all SF guys, and then they're always giving Navy and Marine guys shit because it's just the way it is. It was mostly in good fun, but it gets a little annoying sometimes, and so we kind of bonded with the Marines more than we did the Army guys, but they were all a bunch of professionals. Anyhow,
yeah. So it wouldn't be so they do outsource the training to like we went to Arkansas for Tier 1 group. There's a company called Tier 1 Group. Went there. They also have a course designed for special operators or law enforcement, SWAT,
yeah.
and basically it's CQB,
Hmm.
assaulters type training.
Right.
So we do have opportunities to go outsource to a private company, for example, like I said, and pick up those skills. And the instructors there are prior tier, they're Tier 1 guys.
Yeah.
They're CAG or there were no W guys. They're all CAG.
Hmm.
But these guys they're freaking shooters. They're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
asses. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're picking up the skills that they know. So driver training, a lot of high speed driving training that's involved. Um, I didn't really meet any Force Recon guy that went to Sephardic, which is a great school. I met some Green Berets that went to that school, but they were with the SIF company,
Hmm.
and I explained that to you before. It's called a Commander and Extremist Force. So
Yeah.
I guess every Special Forces battalion had a SIF company,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like their Tier 1, so to speak.
For sure.
So those guys are assaulters, and they do hostage rescue and stuff like that. So
Right.
a lot of them went to this school. So I met a guy that went to Sephardic, and he said it was just lots of shooting, very intensive course.
Yeah. It
And
was intense.
the Marine Corps has a course like that, so it comes under our Special Operations Training Group, so it's SOTG.
Yeah.
And SOTG, just to fill you in, is so it's not just for Force Recon guys; it's for any Marine, infantry Marine
Mm-hmm.
battalion that's going to go on a MEU. So Marine Expeditionary
Wow.
Unit. So MEUs are special operations capable. So they
Mm-hmm.
call it MUPOC. So they send these guys to SOTG training. And it's basically, your boat raids, your amphibious raids. You have boat companies that Marines in a boat company, they go through amphibious raid training at EOTG Coronado, or it's Little Creek.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they run their boat raids, or they have like their helo company. They go through like they learn how to fast rope and stuff like that, and
Yep.
they do specialized training and shooting whatnot. So that's your SOTG. So they have schoolhouses for us to go for assaulters for breaches courses. That's under SOTG. VBSS training, visit board search and seizure.
Yeah.
Trying to board a non-compliant ship.
Right.
Um,
See,
we
this.
we have that course.
Yeah. 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 This is just to interject. This is another mission that we very much do. We train the very same way in the SEALs. Visit board search and seizure is when you have a vessel either underway or not that is there's been taken over by pirates, usually is what it is, but any nefarious actors that you want to retake that ship or asset, and not just American ships but some of our ally ships. But we rehearse to now the way we most commonly did it was, there's several ways to board a ship. Some of it's it depends on what the ship's doing. If it's underway, which means if it's moving, then you're going to have to board it with another moving platform to keep up with it, either a helicopter or like a rib boat or something that's going to come up alongside.
Right.
So we did a lot. We mostly did fast roping onto a helo deck or something. How did you guys approach it? Or all
Yeah.
of
So I mean, both methods. Fast roping on a ship from a C-53
Yeah,
or
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 whatever.
a rib boat or a rib boat. Yeah.
A rib
So
boat. Yeah, yeah.
those are two skill sets that you need to know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you may not always have the opportunity to go on a rib. It just depends. But yeah, both methods are utilized.
Yeah. I've even
Um,
heard, because it's so I'm such a dinosaur that nowadays we have a whole thing in naval special warfare called SWIC.
yeah.
And those are boat drivers and fighters and gunners, and they're doing a lot of, they're kind of taking over the VBSS angle.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we worked with guys from this BT-22.
Hmm.
They're out of Mississippi. Um, yeah, I mean they're great guys. I mean, they're very knowledgeable in anything maritime. They're really good boat operators. That's what they do.
Sure.
But yeah, they're really proficient in VBSS work,
Okay.
close quarter battles. Um, I take it that was something that they never did before. But I guess the newer generation now, that's what they do. So
Yeah, it's changed so much. This is hard for me to even wrap my head around. Like back in the day when I was in, we just had special boat units. They didn't fight. I mean, they could operate a 50 caliber or whatever on their boat or something like that. But now, I mean, our special boat, our SWIC guys and folks are fighters. I mean, they can, like you say, they can do assaulting on a number of levels, and it's just come so far from when I was in.
yeah, I think it was way different back in your time to
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Marine Corps also has their own boat assets. I forget what MOS that is, but they have their own guys that drive ribs and
Is that
work
right?
with them a lot too. Yeah, so they drive rib boats, the same kind of rib boats that the SWIC would have.
Right.
Yeah, dangerous stuff. We had guys fall off the caving ladder coming up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I
That's
mean,
all part of the learning process.
yeah, part of the learning process. So
Uh,
you don't want to hang out on that caving ladder when you're coming up. You just want to get up there as quickly as you can. But it's crazy stuff. It's
For,
dangerous.
to de-jargonize for our listeners, a caving ladder is, they use them for spelunking, like caving. That's why they call them caving ladders. They're about yay wide, about a foot wide, and they have these little aluminum rungs and these cables on the side, so you can unroll them and hook them up over the side of a ship, and you climb that little sucker. But it's hard to climb, and then you got all your gear on.
Yeah.
It can be interesting. There are some pretty entertaining stories we all had about people falling off caving ladders. We fortunately nobody ever got hurt real bad, but it was not fun. So
Yeah, there was this is back in '99. There was a force recon unit that came in a CH-46 or CH-40, one of those twin props.
oh, it's CH-46 probably.
Yeah, and
Yeah, 46.
they were gonna fast rope on one of these. It's a USNS. It was a civilian ship, so they were gonna fast rope on the flight deck there, and that CH-46 came in, and one of the wheels had caught the safety nets. So you know the ships have safety nets, right? So what
Yep.
happened is that helicopter started coming in, and back in those days, I guess those guys were prepping the fast rope, so they just unbuckled and they just got ready, and that one of those wheels caught into that safety net, and it
Yeah.
flipped backwards, landed in the water, and it killed a bunch of guys. There's one guy that survived, but he
Marine
had yeah. So
Marines.
I never met the guy, but um, every time that you get in a helicopter, you have to go through what is a heliodunker course. So
Yeah.
it's a course where it's a mock fuselage of an aircraft and it dunks you in the pool. But they made us watch that video, and I was like, shit, man.
Oh,
It's like, you know, I mean, shit like that happens, right? But yeah, he survived, and
yeah.
he told his
Wow.
story. So, you know, it's dangerous work, yeah, you know, and accidents do happen. I mean, thank God I never experienced any of it. But you fly in a helicopter long enough, I mean, something's gonna happen. So
These damn helicopters. We were doing it in a 46 off of Guam on one of those same ships, MPS they call it, maritime prepositioning ships. They're run by yeah, they're not military, but they're like the merchant marine or something. I don't know. And we almost bit it. We almost all died, and we were coming in on a 46, and 46s are nothing like 47s. 46s are old underpowered Navy dual rotor birds, and they were coming in and they flared too late. And these big huge smokestacks that are putting out massive amounts of smoke out of the ship, it's the engines that are running, and he came over the smokestacks, and all that heat caused all of his tolerances to be off, and we just started violently shaking from side to side. It was what's called a pilot induced oscillation or pitch induced oscillation, I can't remember. And we almost hit one of the big cranes they have in the front. They have these huge cranes that unload those shipping containers, for all these supplies. And we got back, we just aborted. He finally got control of the thing, and I mean, like, the crew chief, the guy on board that had flown all his life, has said, I thought that was it. He goes, I thought today was the day. And I was like, man, these damn helicopters, what is it? Anyway, well, we're coming up on some time, and I think David's given me the go ahead that maybe we can do a episode 2 at some point, and continue the story, because I've got a million questions. But to leave our just to kind of wrap this one up, I wanted to ask you, what in all of your time and talking to other military people and civilian people as well, what is the most misunderstood aspect of Force Recon Marines? Things that people just don't get, probably.
um, I think the misunderstood aspect of recon Marines in general. I think
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I guess there's people misconstrue the difference between battalion reconnaissance, division reconnaissance to your MEF reconnaissance, which is your force recon.
yeah.
It's just the training level of training.
Mm,
So both are O321s. Your recon Marine is just
gotcha.
the level of training. So force reconnaissance Marines tend to go to more training,
Right.
more specialized training. Like I said, your scuba and your free fall,
Yeah.
but they go through a lot more other skills than that. But and that is the mission set. So in a nutshell, Force Recon Marines tend to get inserted deeper into enemy lines than division to
Right.
break it. Yeah.
Because
And then
Division Recon, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, they're really supporting the
the
conventional.
recommended.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
they're
So
doing recon and they're elite and they've got that aspect, but they're not almost going out on a surgical mission themselves. They're supporting a larger force usually.
right. So
Yeah.
it's the MEF. So it's usually the MEF commander, which is a 3-star general,
Right.
is usually under his direction.
Yeah.
Um, whereas a division recon marine would be supporting infantry battalions,
Right. Right.
which
That's
when I was in Afghanistan was a second recon battalion, and we were in Sangin Valley,
mhm.
and there was a lot of Taliban guys there. So, but we were supporting the Fifth Marines. So
Right.
1-5 Fifth Marines was there. So we did a lot of intel work for them.
Gotcha.
So basically, for battlefield commanders there for the battalions and for the division, basically we're there just as in supporting the infantry.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, that's how it was always explained to me, but that makes even more sense talking about it again now.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I've got a whole we didn't even scratch the surface really. So just wrapping this one up, I've got a lot to ask David about some of his deployments, issues he was dealing with, both during and after. He served a lot more recently than I did, obviously. Um, so we'll kind of wrap it up there for this episode because we're going to try to keep them at moderately tolerable lengths, an hour or less or something like that. So just want to say thank you for sharing and helping us and informing our audience, whoever you are out there, wherever you are, operator syndrome, and aloha. We'll talk again, and thanks so much.
yeah. Mahalo. Thank you for bringing me on. It was a pleasure,
Yeah.
and I look forward to coming back again.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can discuss what we missed this time. But
Lots.
thank you very much.
Part two. All
Yeah.
right. To be continued, everybody. Thank you.
All right. All right, brother.